So why, after reading the Quran, did I not convert? Why am I not a Muslim? Well, there's several different reasons for that. But I think one of the biggest reasons, and maybe the most easy to explain, would be that the Quran does not seem to me to be the Word of God, because it claims that things are facts in history, in the history of the Jewish people, in biblical characters. It claims that what the Quran says, what Allah has revealed, this is truth. But it's nothing more than parroted stories, changed a little bit to fit Islam, that were already in other ancient sources before Muhammad. They were known about in Arabia, which are not real stories. Many of them are forgeries. Some come from the Jewish Mishnah. The Jewish Mishnah is a commentary on the Torah. And before you say it, Muhammad didn't know how to read or write. He doesn't have to know how to read or write. First of all, it was an oral culture. They hear stories and then they repeat them. However, a little side note, Muhammad might have been able to write. In Sahih al-Bukhari 5669, it says, when Allah's messenger was on his deathbed in the house, there were some people among whom was Umar bin al-Khattab. The prophet said, come, let me write for you a statement, after which you will not go astray. So, he might have been able to write. But aside from that, let's go to the Quran, where it appears that the Quran is taking from the Jewish Mishnah and claiming it to be actual history. In Surah 5, verse 32, it says this: that is why we laid it down for the Israelites that whoever killed a human being, except as a punishment for murder or other villainy in the land, shall be deemed as though he had killed all mankind, and that whoever saved a human life shall be deemed as though he had saved all mankind. Now the Jewish Mishnah says this, Mishnah Sanhedrin 4:5. We find it said in the case of Cain who murdered his brother, the voice of thy brother's blood crieth. It is not said here blood in the singular, but bloods in the plural. That is, his own blood and the blood of his seed. Man was created single in order to show that to him who kills a single individual, it shall be reckoned that he has slain the whole race. But to him who preserves the life of a single individual, it is counted that he hath preserved the whole race. This is from the Jewish Mishnah in the 3rd century. Notice how the end of that is pretty much identical to what is in the Quran. Now the next one is in the famous Surah 19, Surah Maryam. Many people were wanting me to read this, and I did. But I know of these stories that are in Surah Maryam, and they aren't real stories. They aren't historical stories. They aren't stories that can be attested to historically. They're not reliable stories. Scholars across the board agree with this. But anyways, let's get into chapter 19, shall we? It says in Surah 19, verses 28 through 33, Sister of Aaron, your father was never a whoremonger, nor was your mother a harlot. She made a sign to them, pointing to the child, but they replied, how can we speak with a babe in the cradle? Whereupon he spoke and said, I am the servant of God. He has given me the book, ordained me as a prophet. His blessing is upon me wherever I go, and he has exhorted me to be steadfast in prayer, to give alms as long as I shall live. He has exhorted me to honor my mother, and has purged me of vanity and wickedness. Blessed was I on the day I was born, and blessed shall I be on the day of my death, and on the day I shall be raised to life. Interesting story there, right? This is a miracle of Jesus. He's speaking as an infant, right? Until you find out that the same story, just without the themes of Islam, this same story is found in the Arabic infancy gospel from the 5th or 6th century, which I will now read to you. We find what follows in the book of Joseph, the high priest, who lived in the time of Christ. Some say that he is Caiaphas. He said that Jesus spoke, and indeed, when he was lying in his cradle, said to Mary his mother, I am Jesus, the Son of God, the Logos, whom thou hast brought forth, as the angel Gabriel announced to thee, and my Father has sent me for the salvation of the world. We see that the Arabic infancy gospel has Jesus speaking in the cradle before the time of Muhammad. And again, scholars across the board do not view these stories as historically reliable whatsoever. These are nothing more than myths and legends that grew over time about Jesus. But we aren't stopping there, because still in Surah 19, Surah Maryam, There's another story like this. In verses 22 to 26, it says this: Thereupon she conceived him and retired to a far-off place. And when she felt the throes of the childbirth, she lay down by the trunk of a palm tree, crying, "Oh, would I that I died and passed into oblivion." But a voice from below cried out to her, "Do not despair. Your Lord has provided a brook that runs at your feet, and if you shake the trunk of this palm tree, it will drop fresh, ripe dates in your lap. Therefore eat and drink and rejoice. And should you meet any mortal, say to him, I have vowed a fast to the merciful and will not speak with any man today." So you're like, oh, there's another story of Jesus miraculously speaking as an infant to his mother, until you find out that this exact story is in the pseudo-gospel of Matthew from around 400s AD. Shall we read it? Yes, we should. The pseudo-gospel of Matthew says this: Then the child Jesus, who was sitting with happy countenance in his mother's lap, said to the palm, "Bend down your branches, O tree, and refresh my mother with your fruit." And they immediately at this command, the palm bent its head down to the feet of Blessed Mary, and they gathered from it the fruits, which they all refreshed themselves. Then Jesus said to it, "Raise yourself, O palm, and let the waters flow, so that we may quench our thirst from it." And immediately it raised itself, and there began to gush out by its root a fountain of water, very clear and fresh and completely bright. And then the final one we're going to mention today, one of the most famous stories about Jesus in the Quran, the clay birds. In Surah 3, verse 49, it says this: He will say, I bring you a sign from your Lord. From clay I will make for you the likeness of a bird. I shall breathe into it, and by God's leave it shall become a living bird. Sounds like an amazing miracle of Jesus that he did in his childhood, until you read the infancy gospel of Thomas from the 2nd or 3rd century. What does the infancy gospel of Thomas say? Let's read it. Now a Jew seeing that what Jesus did, that he was playing on the Sabbath day, went his way to Jesus' father, Joseph. He said, "Behold, your son is at the stream of dirty water, and having taken up some mud, he has made of it 12 sparrows, thus desecrating the Sabbath." On this, Joseph went to the spot and cried out, "Why did you do these things on the Sabbath day, which it is not lawful to do?" Jesus then clapped his hands at the sparrows and cried aloud to them, "Go off." So they cluckling flew away, and Jews seeing it were astonished, and went and told their rulers what they had seen Jesus do. Scholars across the board reject these stories as being real or historically reliable stories of Jesus. But the Quran claims that this is a real story. It is straight from Allah, so it must be real. So with seeing this, I can't even come close to being convinced about Islam. Because if God was the author of the Quran, he should know that these stories aren't true. He should know that some of these stories come from Gnostics. But anyways, that's my opinion. You're free to disagree with me. I'm not trying to start any fights here. It's just my opinion. Maybe look into it a little bit more. If you want more information on these Gospels, you can go to biblicaltraining.org, and it will teach you. It will literally give you courses you can take on the historical reliability of, the Bible. It will address these, Gnostic texts, apocryphal texts. So if you're interested in learning more on that, go to biblicaltraining.org. But anyways, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry to burst your bubble. I'm not converting to Islam. I'm still a Christian. Jesus is Lord. So that's all I got for you guys. Peace.